What if the reason we suffer isn't because of what we've lost,
but because we never learned how to let it go?
in the quiet ache of a breakup, the bitterness of an old betrayal, or the haunting echo of dreams that never became real, we often say we're stuck. But the truth is, we're not stuck in the pain. We're stuck in the attachment. Letting go is one of the most misunderstood teachings in Buddhism. It's not about becoming numb. It's not about pretending nothing matters. It's about finding the courage to stop holding what's already slipping away. So before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. Because today's reflection might be the one you've been avoiding, the one that shows you're not weak for clinging. You're just human, but you're also ready to heal. This is Inner Moonlight, and this is why you can't let go and how to start. There's a strange comfort in holding on even to the things that hurt us. A toxic relationship, a memory that still makes the stomach twist, a version of ourselves we swore we'd become. We grip tightly, sometimes with quiet desperation, not because we love it, but because it makes the chaos of life feel a little more controlled. Control. That's the secret craving behind much of our attachment. We don't just mourn what we've lost, we mourn the illusion that we were ever in charge of how it would go. We replay conversations not because we don't know the ending, but because we wish we had rewritten the lines. We hold on to people, moments, regrets, like we're trying to fix the past from the present. But it never works. In Buddhism, this illusion of control is one of the core traps of samsara, the endless wheel of suffering. We believe if we think hard enough, analyze deeply enough, love hard enough, we can make things last. We confuse effort with permanence. But life, by its very nature, is built on impermanence. The Buddha taught that all conditioned things are like dreams, like bubbles, like lightning flashes in the night sky. To hold on to them is like trying to cage wind in our hands. But let's be honest, letting go sounds beautiful in theory and impossible in practice. Because beneath our desire to control is a deeper fear. If we don't hold on, who will we be? That's what makes letting go so hard. It's not just the loss of the object, it's the loss of identity. We become the one who was hurt, the one who was abandoned, the one who almost had it all. And that identity, even in pain, becomes familiar. It becomes safe. Because at least in pain, we know who we are. To release means to step into the unknown, to loosen our grip on the story we've told ourselves, and trust that something new, something lighter might arise. But that trust doesn't come easily, especially for those who have been wounded before, especially for those who built their sense of safety by controlling outcomes. So, how do we begin? It starts with seeing clearly. The Buddha used the word prajna wisdom, not intellectual knowledge, but the deep intuitive seeing into the nature of things. When we truly see that all things change, all stories shift, all identities dissolve, we begin to relax the grip, not all at once, but slowly, gently, like untying a knot without tearing the thread. Letting go doesn't happen because we force ourselves to release. It happens because we stop believing that holding on will protect us. And ironically, that's when the real safety begins. Not from control, but from inner stability. From knowing that peace isn't found in keeping things from falling apart. Peace is found in knowing we'll be okay, even if they do. We're not here to master control. We're here to master surrender. And that begins not with strength, but with softness. Not with more effort, but with less resistance. Let the first knot come loose, and watch what no longer needs to stay begin to leave on its own. It's one of the hardest truths we ever face on the spiritual path. What we called love was often something else. It was attachment. It was projection. It was the desperate attempt to fill a space we never learned to hold ourselves. We said, "I can't live without them," but what we meant was, "I don't know who I am without this feeling." In Buddhist psychology, attachment is not the same as love. Love is spacious. Love is freeing. Love honors the other's path, even if it leads them away from us. Attachment, on the other hand, is grasping. It clings. It contracts. It needs something or someone to feel whole. And here's the tragedy. Many of us were taught that love should hurt, that real love is jealousy, obsession, sacrifice, and drama. But what we were really taught was attachment in disguise. We inherited our models of love from movies, broken households, cultural myths. No one taught us that the most sacred kind of love is the one that doesn't cling, but sees. Sees the other as they are, not as we wish they would be. Sees ourselves as worthy, even when we are not chosen. Sees that the end of a relationship is not the end of love, but sometimes its highest expression. To say, "I love you and I let you go," is not weakness. It is the echo of a soul that remembers nothing and no one belongs to us. The Buddha taught that everything we're attached to is a potential source of suffering. Not because the thing is bad, but because our grip is too tight. Even a lotus, when held too tightly, will be crushed. So how do we unlearn this? First, we stop equating longing with loyalty. Just because we still feel something doesn't mean we're meant to stay. Then we stop confusing familiarity with destiny. Just because they feel like home doesn't mean they are the place we're meant to live. And finally, we start listening not to the ache of what's missing, but to the quiet wisdom underneath it. The part that says, you don't need to keep proving your love through suffering. You're allowed to let go, and you're allowed to heal. Because love, real love, doesn't drain us. It doesn't keep us small. It doesn't demand that we shrink ourselves to stay close. If a connection costs your peace, it was never love. If it blinds you to your own worth, it was never love. If it keeps you from becoming who you are meant to be, it's time to let go. Letting go doesn't mean the love wasn't real. It means the love has served its purpose. And now, the next chapter of love begins not with someone else, but with the gentle act of coming back to yourself. Sometimes, even after the mind understands, the body still aches. Even after the decision is made to walk away, to close the chapter, to choose peace, the body continues to tremble at the memory of their voice, tightens at the thought of their absence, and shudders at the echoes of a love once held too tightly. And that's not weakness. That's biology. That's the nervous system still playing catch-up to the soul's awakening.
You see, the body doesn't speak in logic.
It speaks in sensation, in heartbeats and held breaths, in the way our chest clenches when we pass a place we once walked together, in the way our stomach turns when we hear their name, in the tears that arrive uninvited, triggered by a scent, a song, a soft, sudden memory. This is important. Letting go spiritually doesn't mean the body forgets immediately. It means we learn to hold the body with compassion until it catches up. Because the body is loyal. It records everything. Every time we felt safe, every time we felt abandoned, every touch, every tremor.
And sometimes it holds on to what hurt.
Not because it wants to suffer, but because it's trying to protect us. It's trying to say, last time this happened, we broke. Please don't break again. This is where Buddhist mindfulness becomes more than a practice. It becomes medicine. When we notice, not judge, not suppress, just notice the shaking hands, the racing pulse, the shallow breath. We bring light into the places that once only held fear. We remind the body, this is now. We're safe. We don't need to relive the past. We're allowed to feel and still be free. In trauma recovery, this is called pendulation, gently swinging between discomfort and safety until the body learns it no longer has to stay frozen in pain. In Dharma language, it's called sati presence. Not fighting the wave of feeling, but riding it. Not drowning in it, but floating with it, knowing that even the heaviest emotion is impermanent. So when the body remembers, let it tremble, let it ache, then hold it like a child waking from a nightmare. Say to it, yes, I know this hurts, but we are no longer there. This pain is old, and we're allowed to grow new. The spiritual path is not about never feeling pain. It's about no longer being ruled by it. To sit with the grief, to feel it rise like a tide, and still choose gentleness. This is mastery. This is how the nervous system heals, not by force, but by permission. Permission to feel without shame. Permission to shake and still be steady. Permission to remember and still release. Because freedom doesn't come when the pain disappears. It comes when the pain no longer decides who we are. There's a mistake many of us make when we first begin to practice compassion. We think it means softness. We think it means letting people walk back into our lives just because our hearts have healed. We confuse forgiveness with permission and love with tolerance. But real compassion is not weak. It is not passive. It does not mean giving someone endless access to our spirit simply because we've chosen not to hate them. True compassion, Buddhist compassion, is fierce. It says, I see your suffering even if you try to hide it behind cruelty. I wish you healing even if you never ask for it. But I no longer allow your suffering to become mine. This is the compassion of the Bodhisattva, not the doormat. It's the kind that burns clean. That forgives but does not forget. That blesses someone from a distance because the proximity would destroy your peace. That sees clearly. Love without boundaries becomes self-betrayal. The Buddha never said to keep harmful people close. He said to keep a compassionate mind, which is very different from keeping destructive people in your life. To hold compassion is to recognize the humanity in others, even when they've hurt us. But it's also to protect the sanctity of our own heart. This is where so many old souls get trapped. They feel so deeply, they carry so much empathy, that they begin to abandon themselves in the name of love. But a cracked bowl cannot carry water. A heart constantly wounded cannot pour peace. There is strength in saying, I forgive you. And I will not let you back in. There is wisdom in choosing solitude over sabotage. There is deep spiritual maturity in recognizing that some karmic connections are meant to end, so that both souls can evolve in different directions. Compassion becomes a shield, not a sword, not a wall, when it's rooted in presence. It allows us to remain open without becoming porous. It lets us meet the world with gentleness without becoming a container for other people's rage. When we develop this kind of compassion, we stop needing revenge. We stop fantasizing about proving our worth. We stop writing mental scripts of what we should have said. Why? Because our peace has become more valuable than our pride. Because protecting our spirit is no longer optional, it is sacred. And so we bow not to the person who harmed us, but to the lesson they brought. We bow to our own strength, to our ability to stay soft in a world that keeps trying to harden us. That is compassion too. There's a popular saying that circles through the world of spiritual healing. Your peace is your revenge. At first it sounds like a beautiful contradiction, soft and sharp all at once. But let's go deeper. Revenge is, at its root, a response to pain. It says, I hurt, so I will make you hurt too. It comes from the ego's deepest wound, the belief that we are only safe when we are dominant, when we win, when they lose. But Buddhism teaches something else. True safety arises not when others fear us, but when we no longer fear ourselves. Not when we conquer, but when we release the need to conquer. So what does it mean for peace to be the highest revenge? It means to be so healed that the wound no longer controls your behavior. To be so centered that chaos cannot find a home in you. To walk past the people who once hurt you and feel nothing but space. No rage, no trembling, no desire to explain. It is not silence born of repression. It is silence born of transcendence. The karmic loop ends not when both parties suffer, but when one person decides to awaken. And awakening means, I no longer carry what you did. Not in my bones,
Not in my dreams, not in the way I speak to the next person I love.
This is not easy. The mind clings to stories. It replays betrayal like a movie reel. It wants closure. It wants justice. It wants to be seen and heard and validated. But the Dharma whispers, let that energy die in you.
Not because it wasn't real, not because it didn't matter, but because you matter more than your pain.
The greatest act of rebellion against a world that tried to break you is to be whole. The greatest revenge against someone who wounded you is to no longer let that wound define your spirit. Imagine that. Imagine being able to say, yes, it hurt, but I've grown so deeply I wouldn't go back and undo it, because what it opened in me was greater than what it took. Now that is power. But let's be clear, this is not about pretending. It's not about bypassing or rushing forgiveness before you've grieved. This kind of peace comes after the storm, after the screaming, after the nights you collapsed on the floor, wondering why it had to be this way.
Only then, when everything unnecessary is burned away, does peace rise,
not as an emotion, but as a state of being. So no, we don't need revenge. We need evolution. We need to be so free from the old story that even if they wrote a new chapter, we wouldn't need to read it. To live well is not to live in spite of them. It is to live in alignment with the deepest self, the one that was never broken, only waiting to be remembered. That's not revenge. That's liberation.
So if you're still carrying the sting of someone else's carelessness, breathe.
Let it go, not because they deserve it, but because you do.
The ones who hurt us don't get the last word.
Not if we choose to walk away with silence in our mouth and peace in our spine. After all, no storm lasts forever.
And the soul was never meant to stay wounded.
Let peace be your answer. Let peace be your power. Let peace be your path home.